Every year, the same stories show up. Not because people don't care, not because they're lazy. Well, maybe not everybody. Some people are lazy, but because life keeps applying pressure, and pressure doesn't create who you are. It reveals what you've been practicing on a day-to-day basis. Peace, love, light, healing. My name is Nariah, the owner of Iron City Biomechanics. And this week I want to talk about the moments that don't make the highlight reel, but they decide the direction of your life. Because change, it doesn't happen on January 1st. It happens on a random Tuesday or Wednesday when nobody's watching. And when you're tired, you just want to go to sleep. And so let me walk you through some stories I hear every year as a coach. So story number one, I hear this all the time is, I'll get back on track after this week. Work is heavy. The children, they need you. Life feels loud. So you start to tell yourself, I just need you to survive this little stretch. Let me get through this week. But here's the truth. Survival habits don't lead to your growth. They lead to repetition. So 1 week ultimately becomes 1 month. That 1 month becomes 1 year. And then suddenly, nothing's broken, but nothing's better either. And that is the old stinky thinking way of thinking. Waiting for life to just slow down. The new way that I teach and I believe is true is that learning how to move forward while life stays busy, finding that equilibrium, if you will. Story number two, I work out, I'm doing all the things that my body needs, but I'm still hurting, I'm still in pain. You're showing up, you're active, you're doing what you were told to do, but your body feels tight. Your joints feel heavy, your movements feel forced. You're plateauing, you're not making any progress. But the effort that you're putting, it doesn't fix patterns. The body doesn't respond to what you do sometimes. It responds to what you do consistently. So how you're sitting, how you stand when you're tired, how you breathe under stress, how you walk without, maybe realizing you're even compensating. That's not weakness. Those are habits. Story number three, evenings are my only time to where I could just decompress and just slow down. So you've poured into everybody all day. So at night you just collapse. You get into that doom scrolling, late night snacks, staying up later than your body asks for, going against your circadian rhythm. And listen, that's not necessarily failure, but here's the difference in what you need to hear. I'll say this. Comfort is not recovery. The body doesn't restore itself through distraction. It restores itself through intention. And if your body never truly recovers, then your mind, it won't recover either. It's all interconnected. Story number four, is I'll fix this when it gets worse. That's a horrible idea. But the body starts to whisper first with a little stiffness here, a little fatigue there, sleep not hitting the same as it used to. But you push through it and you start to ignore those whispers, and then they start yelling at you. Pain doesn't usually show up suddenly. It shows up after being ignored. And again, this is the old stinky way of thinking, waiting for pain to force change. The new way that I would provoke thought in you all is, to get on these things early, be proactive. Story number five is this just is it's just it's a part of getting older. And that sentence has robbed people of their potential than any other injury ever has. Yeah, aging is real, but unnecessary pain is often pattern driven, not age driven. And so what you repeat, you ultimately reinforce. And here's the common thread in all these stories. They repeat every year because people focus on these events and not the patterns that have caused the reality that they live in. They try to fix the outcomes without addressing the daily decisions. How they move, how they respond to stress, how they recover, how they even talk to themselves. Those micro decisions don't feel loud, but they are very powerful when you look at it on a macro scale because they're ultimately shaping your identity. And identity determines your direction. Now, here's where this gets even more real because this isn't just true in our bodies and our minds, it's true in your relationships too. Relationships don't break for one argument. You know, most arguments is just fluff anyways. It's deeper issues. They drift from small moments of neglect, unspoken tension, avoided conversations, choosing silence over honesty from the heart, scrolling instead of listening, being present, reacting instead of responding. And just like the body, relationships adapt to what they're exposed to on a consistent basis. If you practice distance, you'll get distance. If you practice being present, you'll build connection. And we all desire that. What what you ignore doesn't disappear, it compounds. And so we just can't sweep things under the rug thinking that it's going to get better. And that's why this question matters everywhere in our lives. Instead of asking, what should I do this year? Or this is what my goal is going to be this year. Ask yourself this: what story am I repeating? In my body, mind, spirit, my habits, my relationships, and who is it shaping me into? Because you don't just wake up one day as the person you want to be. You become that person one decision at a time. And at Iron City Biomechanics, we don't just train bodies. It's not how we operate here. We look at patterns, how stress shows up physically, how movement compensates, how habits create pain or freedom. Because when patterns change, everything else changes. Because at the end of the day, it's all interconnected. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Is this decision putting me closer to who I say I want to be, or keeping me stuck in who I've been? That's the question I would pose to you all. And so awareness changes your direction. Awareness changes your direction. When you're ready, schedule a free no sweat intro with us at our website. It helps us to see what habits you have been practicing and educates you on what small changes will actually move the needle. Again, I'm Nariah with Iron City Biomechanics. Move better, live stronger.